And then also, are you getting questions on, hey, let's go look at foreclosure, Sean. I want to buy a foreclosure house. Are you
Yeah.
getting some questions like that? Yeah.
Well, I mean, a lot of the buyers I'm working with now, since about 50% of the market is foreclosures,
Yeah.
they're trying to decide, because there are some that aren't in foreclosure, but they're still pretty well priced. Those seem to go quickly. But then there's the ones that are either in foreclosure or short sale, which is you still have to deal with a bank on a short sale.
Sure. And what I'm telling my buyers is that, yeah, we can definitely look at foreclosures, but if it's below a certain price point in certain neighborhoods, there's going to probably be multiple offers, and the good deal you thought it was at isn't really going to end up maybe being that good a deal as far as price goes, because there's going to be multiple offers and probably sell for higher than the list price.
Yeah, I had a buyer, one in down in the southern part of the cities, and we were the second of 9 offers.
Yeah. So it gets a little ridiculous at that point, but
why do you think that is, Doug? Like, is it just because it has? I mean, because I've often wondered about this too, because it seems like on the properties that aren't tagged as a foreclosure, I mean, sometimes they're getting multiple offers if they're priced really low, but do you think it's just because they're tagged as a foreclosure and that's why there's so many offers? Or
yeah, the perception out there is that the foreclosures are where the best deals are,
okay,
and that's not always the case, especially if you want to look at the overall picture, and that's what I tell my buyers, and I would suggest, if you aren't doing it, to tell them that, there's no warranty. You buy the place as is. I had one here a few months ago where we bought the property. We did home inspection. It was in the winter, and the day of closing, it got warm out. It started. This would have been last winter now, and it started melting. And we did the final walkthrough just before closing, and there was water coming into the one corner of the basement. And of course, you're buying it as is, so it's either you close or you don't close. And they were all packed up, ready to move in. So
yeah, it's like they might have already sold their house, and they paid the movers, and they packed up all their stuff,
and so here we go. We bought it as is, and we're moving in.
Right.
And we'll have to deal with the problem later. So that
because some people don't realize. I mean, when I start showing people foreclosures, then they realize, hey, you got to sign an as-is addendum.
Yep.
You're never gonna. I mean, the bank has never. Nobody's ever lived in the house that the bank can vouch for. So, I mean, there could be stuff in the attic, or I mean, you just don't know. You could try to get it inspected, which is good for some people. You just have to be willing to take that risk.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And then of course we've got the short sales, and a lot of people don't know what that means. And of course I go over that with them a little bit. That's somebody that's what we call pre-foreclosure. They're running into problems with making their payments.
Okay.
And the price of the house is actually less than what the sellers owe on the house. So that's called short. And I think those are a tinge bit better than foreclosures, because at least you've got real people that are living in the house right now that kind of like the house, but for whatever reason, they need to move. So at least we know who we're dealing with. So the problem with short sales is that we have to negotiate with the bank to take less than what's owed, and that's a long process. So are you telling your buyers that what are you telling them? How long to wait once we make an offer before they hear back? Are you telling them 60 days, 90 days, or what? What are you telling them?
I tell them I tell them I'm going to find out who the banks are. If there's 1 or 2 or 3 mortgages, I want to know from the listing agent what banks are we dealing with, and I want to know if that listing agent has dealt with a short sale before. If that listing agent doesn't do much business or hasn't dealt with short sales, then a lot of getting that negotiated with the banks really depends on that listing agent, or if they hire out a company like you and I do that negotiates for them.
Sure.
Then that's a good sign. But I consider that to be just as important. So yeah, I mean, I would think most people at the minimum it would be 2 weeks on a short sale.
Minimum, yeah. I think actually that's really too short. Most people, we should be telling them that you make an offer on a short sale, you'll probably hear back, and it depends on where they are on the short sale process, but probably hear back in a month, and then you either take it or leave the offer that the bank has. If they agree with the offer that we've made, or if they don't, then we have to accept what they come back at. And then if we don't, then it's usually you're done with that one. So my buyers have to be willing to wait for that period of time.
Okay.
But sometimes we get a pretty good price on those houses, and the reason I like them is that the sellers are currently living in there. Right. Usually, when they leave it in good condition, and you can talk to them and find out, what's going on with the house as far as the condition, and the past history of the house. And then, of course, now what's kind of left after all this is that then people say, well, what about just regular sales? Mm-hmm. And there's nothing wrong with a regular sale. It's the best of all worlds normally. Okay. And that's just a regular seller selling a house, and just the normal that we're all used to over the last years. And I think the best thing about that is that it's a quicker transaction. Again, the people that live there, and they are giving you a property disclosure report, and it's pretty much all normal. And a lot of the sellers, now this is depending on the property, but I tell my buyers, a lot of those sellers are trying to stay as competitive as they can with all the other properties that are quote-unquote distressed. So, we might have to do a little bit more shopping, but we will find a really good home for you that way too. So, each one of these has pluses and minuses. And right. I think it's just how you handle it from the very beginning when we first start working with the buyer to explain, just like we have now, just like we talked about. So that's a good strategy, just to make sure that the buyer knows exactly what's happening out there, so they're as knowledgeable as possible. And that helps.
Yeah, because I think sometimes, like now we even have on the MLS where we can look up just short sales or just foreclosures. But like I just had a seller, another property in the Twin Cities where the guy owned it free and clear. He had lived there with his wife, and all that happened was that his wife passed, and he kept the house. He had like his grandson living there. He got remarried, and now they wanted to sell the house and they wanted the cash. So sometimes I think like. It was in a great location. He picked a great price, like you said, to be competitive with the other short sales and foreclosures. Yep. But if you were too focused on a foreclosure or a short sale, you would have missed out on this one. And we did end up with multiple offers even on that one. But I know we didn't get nearly the activity as like a new foreclosure down the block that has some big red tape on the front door. Which is funny because this was a much better deal, I think. Than some of those. Sometimes those banks are really out of touch with reality, and it's kind of like pulling teeth to get them to realize what the market is like. Yeah, I don't know if you agree with that, but
we're even starting to see that somewhat on the regular foreclosures too. They will start off higher, and then people jump on it right away, whereas if the ones that have been on for longer, they do start reducing their prices just like any seller would after a certain period of time. Okay. But, well, good. Okay. Yeah, well, I'm glad you called on that because I think the main thing, though, is that we want to educate our buyers right up front, and that makes the home buying process a little bit more, you can make more sense out of it, and trying to distinguish between all these different types of distressed sales situations.
Okay. Hey, thanks, Doug. We'll talk to you later.
Yep. Okay, bye-bye.
Thanks.